This is going to be a bit of a rambling discourse, so please bear with me a little bit. It's on the subject of put your ass where your heart wants to be and what that means in kind of the deeper levels. Now, I know I've mentioned in these videos before the idea of different levels of reality, right? That there's a level above us, above the material plane. And it sounds kind of like a science fiction movie and it's kind of hocus pocus, but just think about it for a second. Like at night when we dream, that's a whole other level of reality, right? We're in a consciousness where the rules are different, right? You can move instantly from one place to another and the language is different, the language is symbolic, that sort of a thing is quite different than waking consciousness. Another version of that would be just simply if we were meditating. That would be a whole other area. Another thing would be even simply just being drunk or being stoned. We would be in another level of reality. We'd still be here in our body, but we'd be in another level of reality where the rules are different, right? If we're loaded or stoned or whatever, things might be hysterically funny in that dimension. And in this dimension, it's like, what? What's that? Or vice versa. Psychedelics, another kind of thing like that. One of the points I'm trying to make here is that in the artistic experience, as a writer, as a dancer, as a filmmaker, as any kind of creative endeavor, that what we're trying to do when we say put your ass where your heart wants to be, is to move our waking consciousness, our normal kind of rational consciousness, into this other level. Take the ego and move it into the self. Now, that's a lot easier said than done, but just to elaborate on this a little bit, if you think about in the sports world, when people talk about being in the zone, like a Michael Jordan game or a Tom Brady, 2-minute drill where everything slows down for them and you can see that, they're playing a different game than everybody else on the field. They're in some kind of another space, in an altered reality. And when you talk to athletes who've been in that zone, like a golfer that's shooting this incredible subpar round, to say the hole looked like it was that big, or a basketball player will say like the basket looked like it was that big, I just couldn't miss. Or a quarterback will say the whole game slowed down, I could just see everything on the field. That is that kind of other dimension of reality, the zone, right? That's what we're trying to get to as an artist. For instance, let me just talk about a couple of the extremes when you're working, let's say, as a writer, but this applies to any other creative enterprise. At the bad end of the zone, you sit down at the keyboard and you just get nothing, right? Everything you try to do seems lame, it's been done before, it's forced, you're trying to push it and nothing's happening, right? That's one terrible end of the zone. The other end of the spectrum, you're just in that other space, right? You lose track of time. Stuff is coming out of your fingertips that when you look at it later, you go, where did that come from, right? You're in the flow, you're in the zone. Another analogy to this is the old Eugen Herrigel, the guy who wrote Zen and the Art of Archery, where he went to Japan, or he was in Japan, and he was trying to study Zen Buddhism by practicing archery under one of the great teachers. The big problem that he had was releasing the arrow. Like he would get to a full drawn, and then his teacher would say to him, you're concentrating too hard, you're trying to force it, you're hanging on too long, you're letting go too soon. And he couldn't learn this. This was the concept of, again, trying to get to that zone, that what Zen would say, it's not effort, it's no effort. I know this is rambling. I'll go into this in greater detail further, but the point is, when we say, put your ass where your heart wants to be, that's what we're trying for. We're trying for that zone. We're trying to get our waking consciousness, our ass, our rational being, to shift its center from the ego to the self, to this other level that is a different dimension of reality. So that is another level of put your ass where your heart wants to be. Now, in my life, it took me like 30 years of trying before I could finally get to the point where I could sit down at the keyboard and actually speak in my own voice, or in the voice of a character that I was writing in. And what that was about was moving your ass to where your heart wants to be.
In the building. Oh, I'm in the zone, man. Yeah. Now tell me who can stop me. I'm in the zone. Competition's none in a league of my own. All about the W. I'ma bring it home when it's over with. I'ma be the king of the throne. Now who can stop me? I'm in the zone.